What's up, guys? So, per the last video, I did the top 5 carry optics guns, in my opinion, and a lot of you pointed out that I did not mention the 320. Some of you even messaged me saying, hey, you must hate the 320. That couldn't be further from the truth. I think there's a lot of things the 320 does exceptionally well, and one of those is its ergonomics in like the X5 frame, like this guy, or the AXG frame in this guy, or grip module, whatever you want to call it. That's definitely the 320's biggest party trick, is you can customize it to practically anything you want. You know, how heavy do you want it? How light do you want it? What kind of grips do you want? Do you want it to have grips? You know, big, medium, small, it doesn't matter. Go on and on and on and on. You can make it exactly how you want it. And it's one of the only few guns out on the market that you can do that with right now. If you're big into tinkering and aesthetics, this is also kind of where it plays its best trick, because the aftermarket support is almost rivaling that of a Glock as far as availability and people that make it. You can literally make them look whatever you want. I've done a few crazy builds on them, like this one, this one, this one. So I've owned and shot plenty of 320s. I've competed with them at matches, some at majors. I even built a 40 cal and used it at a major for limited. Stop, I'm going to do a little side rant on the 320. The number one complaint that I hear about the 320 is anti-bore axis. It's the same bore axis as your precious 2011 that everyone wants to go goo goo gaga over. So here's an idea. Just admit you can't adapt to that gun and can't shoot it well and move on. Sorry, end rant. The 320 does get beat out easily in two areas. The first one being the trigger. The trigger you can get exceptionally well. The gun I built for Jaki, this one, this is a fantastic trigger. It's the only trigger I've had in any of my 320s that I've had ROs at Chrono go, wow, this is the best 320 trigger I've ever felt. But that trigger costs an obscene amount of money to get that way. This trigger in my gun has parts from Apex, parts from Gray Guns, and polishing. It was like 140 for the Apex stuff, 165 for the Gray Gun stuff. Didn't even use all the parts for the Gray Gun stuff. So you're talking $300+ and a trigger job. That's crazy. And it still wasn't my favorite trigger. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with it being one of their biggest downfalls, is even with a 300+ trigger in there, that trigger is not as good as even like a factory PDP trigger or an HK trigger or a Canic trigger. I think those triggers are better than the 320 trigger that I have in Jaki's gun. So it's not that it can't be good, and I'm not a trigger snob by any means, but it could be better. And I absolutely couldn't make this video without talking about probably the number one reason people are on the 320 hating bandwagon even more, is there are a crazy amount of 320s blowing up. Now, I'm not saying all 320s are like this, because clearly they're not. But let's go through a couple of facts. There's been quite a few PDs that have filed lawsuits. SIG has settled out of court twice with two separate officers, one of them being Georgia man Robert Lang. He sued SIG and saying the firearm shot itself before he completely removed it from his holster. He was awarded $2.3 million. I'm not saying, like I said, all SIGs have this problem, but there's an issue somewhere. Where there's smoke, generally there's fire, and there's a lot of smoke. And I'm a little disappointed that it hasn't necessarily been addressed, because clearly something's going on. So I'm not going to get into the rants. There's plenty of the rants on YouTube about it. That's just how I feel about it. I think SIG should be doing more to figure out what's going on with this. So listen, I don't hate the 320. I actually like them. I love the way they feel. I love the way they shoot. They have their quirks about them and their features that I wish would be a little bit better. And yes, they are probably one of the most popular carry optics guns. I think it's winding down to not be, but I even asked AI on our podcast, Pew Time, on the latest episode, what the top 5 carry optics guns were, and they matched my picks, 1 for 1, except they didn't have an M&P on their list. They had the 320. Now, there was a time that I would agree with that the 320 is the best option, because it was one of the first proper optic-ready competition-style guns. And it was in, back then, carry optics had a weight limit. It was within the weight limit. If you wanted a Shadow 2 back then, You had to buy a regular Shadow 2, the optic ready one didn't exist, and you had to send it to someone and take out a shit ton of weight from the gun. That's why the original guys that used Shadow 2s, their guns look crazy with all these cuts on it because the weight limit was much lower, so you had to fit within the weight limit. So buy a 320 out of the box, or buy a Shadow 2, which was more expensive than the Legion at the time, pay someone to cut it, and pay someone to mill the crap out of the slide to make it within weight. Most people chose the easy route and went with the 320 because it was a smart play. So nope, don't hate the 320. I just wish that SIG would do a little more digging and to find out what's going on and maybe make some revisions to what the 320 has to be. Maybe something that's not a voluntary upgrade. But if you use it and love it and shoot it well, keep doing it. I still have 320s. I still shoot them. I just don't compete with them anymore. But all right, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.